Real Madrid are the kings of Europe, and there are so many reasons why this is true. They've won the most trophies in the history of the Champions League, and they're the only team to do a three-peat in the modern era. The fact that they've dominated this competition since its inception, winning trophy after trophy, is truly mind-blowing. But today, we want to focus on something else that's just as mind-blowing. Let us talk about how Real Madrid three-peated the UEFA Champions League. First, when we say this, it's important to mention that we're talking about the modern era, because this same club has not only done a three-peat before, but they won 5 trophies in a row in the previous format. Real Madrid established themselves as kings of Europe right from the very beginning, winning the first 5 editions of the Champions League, or the European Cup as it was called back then. To be fair, in the previous format, we also had other teams three-peat the European Cup, like Ajax and Bayern Munich. It was a bit easier back then because there weren't many teams in the competition and not many matches to play. But when the competition expanded in the late 90s to accommodate more teams, it became harder to win the Champions League and much harder to defend it. From the point when the European Cup became the Champions League, no team was able to successfully defend the title. Well, until a certain novice coach popped out of nowhere in the mid-2010s. You see, Zinedine Zidane had no first-team coaching experience when he took over as Real Madrid coach in 2016. Real Madrid have a habit of only hiring big-name coaches, so it was unlikely that Zidane would get the Real Madrid job with no experience. But he did, and he ended up making history. Zidane got into coaching in 2013, starting as assistant to head coach Carlo Ancelotti after leaving his position as the club's sporting director. Then in 2014, after Ancelotti left, he went on to work as the coach of Real Madrid's B team. Zidane acted in that capacity until January 2016, when Rafael Benitez was sacked, and he was immediately appointed to succeed the Spaniard. Zidane had won the Champions League as a Real Madrid player, and the club was hoping that it'd be able to replicate that feat as a coach. But even the most positive fans out there were shocked by what Zizou was able to achieve with the team in such a short time. Now, it's important to note that Benitez was sacked because he was unpopular with the fans and had failed to get results against top sides. He'd drawn against PSG and Atletico, lost to Sevilla and Villarreal, and worst of all, lost 4-0 to deathly rivals Barcelona. So, taking over from this with no preseason was a huge challenge for a man who had no experience coaching a first team, but Zidane believed he was up to the task. At the time he took over, Real Madrid were 3rd in the league behind Barcelona and Atletico, but he was able to take Madrid on an insane run, losing just one of the 20 La Liga games he coached that season. And that run featured a 2-1 win in El Clasico, which put an end to Barcelona's 39-game unbeaten run, which was a very sweet victory for Los Blancos. Thanks to this unbelievable run, Zidane was able to help Real Madrid to a second-place finish with 90 points, just 1 behind champions Barcelona. But if you thought the league run was crazy, what would you say about the Champions League run? Real Madrid breezed past AS Roma in the round of 16, winning that tie 4-0 on aggregate. However, they stumbled in the quarter-final, losing the first leg 2-0 to Wolfsburg. But Zidane's Madrid, led by Cristiano Ronaldo, showed character and fought back to pull off a comeback in the second leg, thanks to a CR7 hat-trick. They struggled against Manchester City in the semis, but they got by thanks to a 1-0 win, and then, in the final, they got the opportunity to exert revenge on Atletico Madrid. You see, Real Madrid did not manage to beat Atletico in the league that season. They were the only ones who'd beaten Zidane in La Liga, so one could say that it was their loss in the derby that cost them the league. So, Madrid went into that final with revenge. It was tough, but they eventually succeeded, beating their neighboring rivals on penalties to win their record-extending 11th title. It was insane how the inexperienced Zidane was able to take that lackluster team and transform it into the best team in Europe in just a matter of months. He joined Pep Guardiola in that elite club of coaches who won the Champions League in their very first year as a coach. Many people say that Zidane was only lucky, and they swore that he would suffer in his first full season at the club, but that turned out to be so far from the truth. Zidane decided to do one better the following season. You know what he did? We'll tell you in a second, but if you're enjoying the video so far, take a second to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you can see more content like this. Zidane went ahead to build a very formidable team with one of the best attacking and midfield trios on the planet. He had Modric, Casemiro and Kroos in midfield, and Bale, Benzema and Cristiano up front. With this team and Zidane in charge, Real Madrid were just totally unplayable. They played very direct football and just did not know when they were beaten. By December 2016, Zidane had broken the club record for longest unbeaten run after they'd avoided defeat in their 35th straight game. Then, in January, they completed 40 games without a loss, breaking Barcelona's Spanish record of 39 from the previous season. Zidane would then go on to lead Real Madrid to the league title, the club's first in 5 years. Now, remember that at this point, no team had managed to successfully defend the Champions League title, so everyone was just waiting for when Real Madrid would be knocked out of the tournament, because it was just impossible for them to win it in back-to-back seasons. They thought Bayern would do it in the quarter-finals, and while that was a tough battle, even going all the way to extra time, Real Madrid came out victorious. People said Atletico Madrid would take revenge for the previous year in the semi-finals, but Real Madrid beat them 4-2 on aggregate and progressed to the final. At this point, people said that Juventus was surely going to stop Madrid from making history. But Zidane's Madrid made light work of the Italians in the final, beating them 4-1 to win their 12th Champions League trophy and become the only team to successfully defend the trophy in the modern era. With this, Zinedine Zidane became only the second coach to win the European Cup/Champions League in his first 2 seasons as a coach. The only other person to do it was Real Madrid's Jose Villalonga. After this victory, everyone said the party was surely over. They'd come, they'd set a record, and they'd further establish their dominance. But it was over now. There was no way on earth that they were going to win 3 in a row. 2 in a row was difficult, but 3, now that was just impossible. And when the season started, it did look impossible. Real Madrid did not look like their normal scary selves from the jump. It felt like the players were burnt out and had lost motivation. They failed to win 3 of their opening 5 games of the league, failed to win home and away against Spurs in the group stage of the Champions League, and got knocked out of the Copa del Rey by Leganés. There was no way this team was going to successfully defend their league or Champions League crowns. No way. Real Madrid finished second in their Champions League group behind Spurs, and they drew PSG in the round of 16. People said that was the end for Madrid. But the champions cruised past the French giants, beating them 5-2 on aggregate. They then went on to face Juventus in the quarter-final, and that was a huge test. They got past the Italians easily in the first leg, winning 3-0 with Ronaldo scoring one of the greatest goals in Champions League history. But the second leg was very tough. Juventus fought back and got themselves a 3-0 lead. But just when we thought the game would be going to extra time, Real Madrid got awarded a very late penalty, and Buffon was sent off in a very heated last couple of minutes. Cristiano Ronaldo stepped up and converted the penalty in the 97th minute, sending Real Madrid to the semis with the last kick of the game. Again, this team just did not know when they were beaten. But one thing was obvious, this Real Madrid team was very shaky. They were not as good as they were in previous years, so it was only a matter of time before they were found out. I mean, at this point, they were out of the Copa del Rey and had already given up on the league, sitting 3rd in La Liga. So, what became clear was that Champions League was all they had left that season. Zidane even started to rest key players in the league to keep them fresh for the Champions League games. Cristiano Ronaldo did not play 5 of the last 10 La Liga games that season. That's how focused on the Champions League Zidane was. In the semi-final, they were up against Bayern Munich yet again. They narrowly won the first leg 2-1, and the second leg ended in a 2-2 draw. It wasn't very pretty, but it was enough. Real Madrid were in their 3rd consecutive final. Could they do it? They were up against Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, who'd only lost 1 game in that Champions League campaign. And even that loss came after they'd already beaten AS Roma comfortably in the first leg of the semi-final. Liverpool had Mohamed Salah, who was arguably the best player in the world that year. He'd just won the Premier League Golden Boot and was named Premier League Player of the Season. He formed a deadly attacking trio, along with Mane and Firmino. And they had a rock at the back in Virgil van Dijk. Yes, these were surely the guys who'd stopped Real Madrid. The Reds started that final brilliantly, but they were dealt a huge blow when Salah was forced to leave the pitch after 30 minutes due to an injury. Despite having lost their best player, Liverpool still gave Real Madrid a tough time, but it appeared that their goalkeeper was playing against them that night. Thanks to two well-wrapped gifts from Karius and a beautiful overhead kick from Gareth Bale, Real Madrid defeated Liverpool to win their third Champions League title in a row. An incredible feat that cannot be topped ever. Zinedine Zidane immediately entered an elite list of managers who've won the Champions League or European Cup 3 times. At the time, it was just him, Bob Paisley and Carlo Ancelotti in that group chat. Pep Guardiola only joined after winning it with Man City in 2023. Zidane also became the first ever manager to win the European Cup in 3 straight seasons. The Frenchman was only 2.5 years into coaching, and he was already permanently writing his name into the history books. I mean, you can say the first was a possible fluke, and back-to-back was luck, but to three-peat the biggest club competition in the world? Nah, that is genius. And you know how the saying goes, leave when the ovation is loudest. Zinedine Zidane and Cristiano Ronaldo understood that perfectly. After dominating the continent together for the last 3 years, they both said goodbye to Real Madrid just days after the final, putting an end to one of the greatest eras in European football. You might not have enjoyed the way they played, or found it very entertaining, but you must admit that the Real Madrid team who three-peated the UEFA Champions League is one of the greatest teams in the entire history of football. But there have been more great Real Madrid teams in the past, you know. Like the ones who won 5 European Cups in a row, for example. If you're interested in finding out about these great Los Blancos teams over the years, click on this link and we'll tell you about the entire history of Real Madrid. Thanks for watching. Show your support by hitting the like and subscribe buttons.